2026, probably for about the next 23 minutes or so, as I'm on a lunch break. The main thing today, and I posted a blog about it, is Jesse Ventura was on Piers Morgan. And Ventura's a wrestler, was it Jesse the Body Ventura? And as a wrestler, he knows what blading is, which is when you have a little razor blade and then you nick the top of your head because the blood will run down, mix with the sweat, and it's very dramatic because you're covered in blood, which is disgusting if you think about it. Bloodborne pathogens, AIDS, hepatitis. In fact, there's a period of time where I knew someone who worked for WWE, and they throw away the mats. And I was doing murals at the time. So my business model was basically cutting up WWE wrestling mats and painting murals that I could roll up and ship anywhere in the world. So I actually have sold plenty of murals. They're just not installed locally. And my selling point was, you can have a painting on your bedroom wall or your living room wall and then take it with you later. So it's a removable, and it's really thick canvas, a thick blue canvas. And occasionally there would be blood on it, but they could not, for legal reasons, reuse the mats once they've been stretched, used, and soiled. So a lot of people have soiled WWE mats on their walls. They may not know. I don't know how open I was about it. Not that they're like bloody rags. I'm just saying a lot of sweat. So hopefully nobody got infected. Okay, so now Jesse Ventura is on Piers Morgan, and he said that Trump used blading, to cut his ear. And look, I question it. I mean, he did hold his ear, and he could have bladed himself, but I somewhat question that. I'm still in the camp that he got on the ground behind the podium, and there was a ketchup packet waiting for him. Heinz 57, like what JFK used in the home movie he and Jackie filmed 60 days before his, quote, assassination. Regardless, he faked it. But this is not a win for truth. We have to stop looking at anybody on the world stage saying something true as somehow speaking the truth. Because the world stage makes you a liar. And if your point of view is constrained by its parameters, you are a liar by default. Whatever, garbage in, garbage out. But, it's like whatever goes in to this system is going to come out that way. It's like, in a way, they might say something that's true and accurate, but because of their context, it's automatically going to be not just diluted, but miscontextualized. So you have to ask the right questions. And so for him just to throw out there, he bladed himself, that's not really enough, because it suggests that he might have pulled off a trick or a stunt to win the PR thing. But what he didn't do is he didn't say the shooter was an actor. The fireman didn't really die. The family lied. The funeral home lied. The Secret Service lied. Everybody behind us were in on the staged op. The AP photographers were liars. No, they don't bring down the entire infrastructure of world stage fakery, which is systemic fakery, routine, standard operating procedure. It's how they manufacture our history. Butler, Pennsylvania was planned years in advance. It wasn't like, he had to do it to win the election. No, that's the guardrail theory. The conspiracy theory they give you to keep you assuming that this whole thing is real is usually a controlled opposition damage control point. So in this case, he did it because he had to win the election, presupposes that the election was even a question. All indications are these things are prefabricated. That assassination attempt was scripted. It was in the program more than 15 years before it happened. So Jesse Ventura suggesting that it was a blading didn't go far enough. And if anything, it just makes people who suggest that look crazy. Sort of like recently, there's been a number of big channels talking about Charlie Kirk still being alive. but then they're saying, oh, it's because they had to put him into witness protection. You see what I mean? These explanations miscontextualize the fact and have it submerged in the sea of irrelevance. So it's not a win. It's subtle. And like, oh, look, he's speaking the truth. No, actually, he's not. He's giving it a foot bullet. He's sabotaging it. He's destroying the conversation in advance. But I'm questioning here, why now? Why did this video, Charlie Kirk is Alive, come out after I announced my project video, Charlie Kirk is Alive? And then I'm like, you have to mention that in the context of Butler, Pennsylvania being fake. And now that's being highlighted. I mean, it's not a bad thing, and I'm not saying it's because of what we're doing, but that is how damage control works. They get ahead of any leaked fact and turn it into a limited hangout. A limited hangout is when you say something that's true, but you surround it with a lot of lies, and you control the context of the conversation so it doesn't get out of bounds. So in this case, and here's Morgan and Jesse Ventura just shouting over each other. If you had just a normal, calm voice explain, if true, then what? It would unravel the world stage. What we have is a nuke. That's exactly what we have. And if you haven't really considered the implications, it's pretty simple. Let's go with Butler. For Butler, Pennsylvania to have been fake, it means that the shooter was an actor, the fireman is an actor. It means that the paramedics there were also in on it. It means that the media, bipartisan, left and right, were part of it. So it wasn't like Trump was fooling the Democrats and the Democrat media was fooled. No, this isn't trickery. You know, liars don't lie with every breath, and the media sometimes reports things as they are, but sometimes it fabricates things. Sometimes it's passively recording. Other times it's actively producing and creating. When it's lying, it's producing, like reality TV, where it's not exactly as objective as you would think if you were naive, as most people are. Now, Piers Morgan's response was just to get mad and to say you're crazy. That's what they want. They need the conspiracy theorist guy out there to take the hits and to look crazy and take a fall on your behalf. Jesse Ventura had that TV show. It was called Conspiracy Theory, where he meets Alex Jones in some dark alley. Like it's all sneaky, but they got the camera crew. And he's like, 9/11 was an inside job. Yeah, Larry Silverstein, Building 7, direct energy weapons. Judy Woods. Inside job. Yeah, bro. It's like, okay, that's as far as they can take it. Not, yeah, those towers were designed to be taken down 33 years after they were built as part of a ritual, as part of a worldview transformative psyop that's going to affect all mankind and set the stage for the next 20 years of agendas because we write history in advance. No, they can't say that. Like, no, Bush did it. So if they reduce it down to partisan politics, like Trump did it to trick the Republicans, Bush did it to get us into war. They keep the left and right tug of war going, and neither talk to the singular entity triangulating them. Now, I don't think it's a step back that Jesse Ventura puts on blast the blading thing. It gets the conversation going. And this is where we come in. This Charlie Kirk is Alive video I'm making is going to include an assessment of the Butler, Pennsylvania event, because these things need to be included in context. We have to break people out of the Westworld syndrome. Westworld syndrome is when you look at every event in isolation, every news cycle as a isolated series of events over a 24-hour period, rather than looking at the continuity. My frame of reference spans 6 decades. When I look at today's news, I don't look at, oh, today's news, breaking headlines. I'm like, no, this is happening at the tail end of 60 years of systemic fakery. If you don't know about systemic fakery, your opinion on the news is not only irrelevant, but it's going to be erroneous. I mean, it's only relevant within your circles, but it's not relevant to me. It's not relevant to the truth. It doesn't take you towards the truth. And speaking of truth, the so-called truthers in alt media have no interest in discerning truth. Their interest is in harvesting each other's content, competing for clicks, and chasing the next high. It's all engagement bait, clickbait, conspiracy candy. There's no truth in them. Try to find me a truther, a so-called conspiracy theorist truther, who has in any way arrived at something other than just keeping up with the alt media talking points. Sorry, but alt media is establishment media. If you're still stuck in any alt media talking point or platform, you're way behind. And we don't need you. What I mean, and that's true. I mean, we don't need people who are still holding on to a belief system. If you're an alt media believer, stay. Stay in your sheep pen. Keep drinking the Kool-Aid in Alex Jonestown. Keep hitting whatever is in that Q pipe on Q Street. Snort the red pills. Get your conspiracy candy, engagement bait, truth-ertainment. We don't care, because what we're doing is so distinct from traditional alt media and from this delusion that alt media and mainstream are somehow different when they're from the same establishment. What we're doing is separate from that. And to separate from those people who are part of that, we do have to draw lines and call them out on their flaws. If you're still pushing chemtrails, you're stuck in Trutherville. And you might think, oh, it's just a minor thing. It's not a minor thing. You have a hole in your information processing system, your mental immune system. If you're falling for things that require that you passively ignore multiple logical fallacies, you're not a reliable eyewitness. Your testimony is invalid. You've been corrupted. It's malware for the mind. It's like, can I just have one? Let me just have one platform. Let me just be an anti-vax. No, sorry. If you're an anti-position, you're in lockstep with every other anti-position on that side of the political horseshoe. And if you're in the political horseshoe, you haven't left the Truman Show. And if you're not ready to leave the Truman Show, nobody's nudging you. I'm not reaching out a hand. I'm trying to burn bridges, because what we're doing is completely and entirely separate. And only those who have left it mentally, who have gone off the grid mentally, will make it to where we are. You cannot claim deprogrammed. You cannot attain the off-world stage perspective if you're still stuck in any of the controlled opposition platforms. Even if you feel strongly about it, like, who cares about your emotions? It comes down to emotions. Like, oh, I feel really strong about this particular issue. Well, let's go with what you know and what you think. And this is why I've become very anti-religion in recent months, because religion's all based on feelings. So, like, I feel like Thor is real, and Thor's hammer is real, and Thor provides great comfort to me. I pray to the lightning. That's fine. You can have your beliefs and stuff, but let's keep it separate from news analysis. And if your anti-position is rooted in a religious delusion, it kind of needs to go. And this includes Pizzagate. It includes the theories of satanic child-eating cabals running the world. Like, you can't say it's Satanists running the world if you're not a Christian. And then if you're claiming that's your basis, then what is your source for this satanic cabal? What is the source for your knowledge about their, quote, rituals? Because so many people seem to be really versed in it, like, oh, it's just another Illuminati human sacrifice ritual. Really? Show me the spell book. Where did you find out about this? Because there's a lot of conspiracy theory mythology, claptrap, community-generated fan fiction that needs to be separated from reality. Like the QAnon sense. The QAnon sense wasn't even all that new. But I'm noticing here, and this is to our advantage, as we're moving forward into creating this objectivist third platform of media, the mainstream alternative is becoming increasingly superstitious, religious, and focused on essentially tabloid level entertainment. So they've let their guard down. They've been nullified by the mind war. The bread and circuses has captivated them. They are a captive audience, and you can tell these are the ones who say, are we still talking about that psyop? Can't we just talk about the next one and the next one and the next one? Because they're chasing hits. And I'm not a propaganda dealer. I'm not dealing out hits of dopamine for somebody chasing the next current thing. No, we're doing mass media deconstruction. And if you're chasing the next hit, it means that you are stuck in the 24-hour news cycle. You haven't left Westworld. When you leave Westworld, you realize there's no meaningful basis for treating breaking news as any more significant than news from 2 months ago, if the news was written in advance. Joe from Connecticut says, how many years did I hear him say we need to save the kids, and you don't hear them say that anymore? Yeah, you get a blue shield for that. That's a great question. I had a good friend who was like, don't you want to save the children? It's like, don't you want to wear the AIDS ribbon? Aren't you against AIDS? Yeah, I'm against AIDS, but I don't want to wear the AIDS ribbon. And then they beat me up. That's the Kramer thing in Seinfeld. It's like, don't you want to save the children? Well, yeah, but I don't want to worship JFK, Donald Trump, and believe in deep state satanic rituals and underground tunnels where children are being trafficked. But don't you want to save the children? So that kind of question is a loaded question, because the question is phrased in such a way that if you say yes, you acquiesce to all their QAnon nonsense. And now you're a right-wing MAGA Republican fighting for a great awakening. If you say no, well, then you basically don't want to save the children from being satanically murdered and having their pineal glands extracted for the pleasure of the vampire cabal. So there's no way you can answer such a question. So this person was like, don't you want to save the children? And she sent me these videos of a bunch of children like crying, these black eyes, and then pictures of Trump holding babies and running and saving them. And I was like, okay, these people have fallen for a psyop. They've been dragged into this thing by their emotions. And at the time, they were going totally schizo about things like, oh, look, Dan Scavino sent a tweet at 12:17, which is 0017 military time. 17 is Q. So now if we look at today's date and the Q drop from 3 years ago on this date, Dan Scavino was talking about this. Oh, okay. And then time passes. They waited for JFK to show up and save them. He never did. They desperately hoped that Trump was JFK in a Trump costume. That didn't come through. And now where are those people? Where are all those people who berated me for not wanting to join their club? Have they saved any children? And the answer is no. And I had some foolish individual call me an evil villain. Called me a villain because I'm like, I'm not into your God. Your God construct was created by the government to control you. I'm a Gnostic. I prefer to know things. Lowercase g Gnostic, not capital G, lowercase g. And I was called a villain. And I'm like, okay, you know what? You have no right to call me a villain until you provide me a list of how many people you've saved, how many lives you've saved, how many times you've intervened on behalf of innocents. Like, show me your good deeds or shut the hell up, because this false moral high ground that certain truthers claim needs to be called out. Because if you're still part of this trutherism, you're part of the psyop entertainment complex. Maybe you're an ignorant, useful idiot. Maybe you're a useful stooge. Maybe you're just being pied-pipered, but it doesn't mean you're not an enemy of your own self-interests, of humanity. I mean, think about it. They're waging Psywar through what? Not just through screens, not just through the radios, not just through what you're hearing and reading, but also through the human vectors. If you're carrying a belief and passing it like it's a mind virus, you're part of the dissemination process. And if you're disseminating enemy propaganda designed to maintain the structure, the internalized Truman Show, well, then you're the enemy. You're one of the agents of the Matrix. You're one of the liars surrounding Truman. So you've lost your moral high ground. We have it. You don't. And this also counts for mainstream. Mainstream acts like, oh, well, we got the moral high ground because we believe the news and you don't. Again, a lot of believers think that when they give themselves that special label and they put on their favorite, symbol or whatever, they've somehow sent, like they put on their AIDS ribbon or their Q ribbon and now they're higher. No, actually, you're not. You're deeper into the spell. So you can't give cultists the moral high ground, especially when their cult beliefs are rooted in feelings, in rejection of the intellect. This whole system is intellectually dishonest. It's an affront to your intellect. That's why I've said that at a minimum, you can try to minimize what we're doing, right? Like, okay, so maybe you don't believe that we represent a significant market disruption in the alt media ecosystem and that we're going to create a very large schism resulting in a permanent, self-aware third branch of media. You may say, okay, that's too ambitious. Well, at a minimum, we are inciting a valid intellectual revolt, because not all of us take kindly to being condescended to and treated like we're stupid, like we can't perceive for ourselves. And those of us who are of sound mind, we do intend to carry this message forward. And there's enough of us here that, yeah, it's something of a revolt at a very minimum. Although I expect it to be much bigger because I have bigger plans. But these days, it's probably a good thing that I'm working overtime, because I'm noticing that everything that we're saying and discussing here seems to be mirrored in alt media. Like various pundits, and I can point to numerous examples. This isn't new. I mean, I remember even during 2020, how often our content was harvested. When I did Secret Religion of the Elite, I did this breakdown of how hand sanitizer was a new holy water, the mask was a religious garb, how it was a puritanical revision, virus was a new concept of sin, COVID a devil the atheists could believe in, the media with its injectable Eucharist was the new church that offered salvation, saved, unsaved. And I'd broken this concept down, and there were some pretty large channels who just basically ripped it off. And I was like, cool with it. I was like, who cares? We want the facts of this thing to get out. But now I realize, no, when somebody who has a world stage point of view, MSM or MSM plus, whatever they say, it's gonna be corrupted. So we can't be handing the opposition valid talking points, because all they will do is they will dilute it. When it comes to the Charlie Kirk Trump thing, though, I'm fine with it, because what we'll do now is we will be able to look at the comment sections on every video that confronts these things, and we will very easily be able to market that next video that's coming up on Charlie and Trump. We'll be able to target those individuals with this video, because we're talking about rare people who have discernment, who don't mind going against the mob. And such individuals have to be aware of the fact that they don't have a platform. They don't have representation on the world stage. They're ignored, marginalized, not taken seriously. They're not taken seriously by the people who routinely echo InfoWars talking points. Like, do we really care that we're not taken seriously by alt media people? No, we don't. They're not serious. They're not serious thinkers. They're here for entertainment. We know this now. So all those individuals who have spoken up in the comments and said, yeah, I think Charlie's alive, and there's a lot of them, they just don't have a network. They're isolated. They're separated. And this is how the system works. I often reference Space Cadets, that 10-episode show where those individuals thought they were in low Earth orbit. And the way that this illusion was accomplished is half of the wannabe astronauts were also separated by half actors. So it was like 5 actors, 5 wannabes. The actors kept the wannabes from collaborating and arriving at the truth that they weren't really in space. So they had this way of maintaining the illusion by preventing people from comparing notes. So that's what we're experiencing, is we're surrounded by guardrails. We're compartmentalized by these various influencers who essentially mislead people into various cul-de-sacs. So now that these individuals who can see are identifying themselves, they're reachable with AI bots, or even manually just replying to somebody and saying, yeah, you're not going to get anywhere with these controlled opposition puppets. Watch this video. And we will therefore, if you ask me, onboard hundreds of people a week into the think tank when they see the value in what we're doing. It's not like you get there by accident. You don't see through this thing by accident. It takes, like, when I talk about the passive versus active thing, What defines mainstream and alt media consumer habits is that they're passive. They passively absorb the content rather than actively process it, which means skeptical, which means waiting to judge if it's real or not before they've had enough time to assess the facts. And so you don't arrive at, I don't think Butler is real, and I don't think Charlie Kirk's dead. You don't arrive at that passively because nobody's feeding it to anybody. That's not coming down from any influencer of significant size or anybody. It's a bottom up. It's a grassroots. You realize that media skepticism is grassroots. Alt media is not grassroots. That's the fakeness of it. It pretends to be grassroots. Oh, we're the people. That's the establishment. When everything in alt media is coming down from the top. And you have these individuals who pretend to be street level, like Tucker Carlson, multi-hundred millionaire with the CIA dad. He gets kicked out of Fox, which is very performative. Or Candace Owens, another multi-hundred millionaire, kicked out of Daily Wire, also performative. These woke right people are pretending to be street. Oh yeah, the establishment kicked us out, so we're one of you guys now. And I got attacked by demons. You're not establishment. I mean, you're not anti-establishment. You are essentially plants. And so the plants are leading this whole thing on the alt media side. There aren't any who aren't plants. And I can spot them from a mile away. A lot of people are like, you got to check out this Professor Jane guy at the whiteboard. Predictive history. I looked at his channel, took me 3 seconds. Oh, he's a plant. I still listen to his videos. I checked them out. And I see him on Tucker last week, and I'm like, plant confirmed. And these creatures are subtle. And it's all about perspective, point of view. Because you can spout facts all day. And people give you credit for it. Oh, this guy's speaking the truth. Yeah, but if you're speaking the truth in their Truman Show, not rejecting its parameters, you're not speaking the truth. As I said before, the world stage makes you a liar by default. You could be an honest person, pure heart, good intentions. You work for a local news company reporting the news. Yeah, maybe every day you're just reporting on the traffic and you're not necessarily a liar. But the institution you support and all of its reportage is predicated on the false assumption that everything that came before was real and that our history is real and that it's not prefabricated. Jamarian says, Professor is a CCP PSYOP operative. Duet Celeste says, in Europe, we have members of nobility who pretend to be outsiders. Well, look how many of the influencers in the countercultures, especially in the 60s, came from military intelligence families, came from elite families, elite colleges. What do you think that is? And this is weaponized anthropology. This is getting people at the grassroots so they have credibility. With Tucker, it's hilarious. He's as far from grassroots, street level as you could be. And I see him, he puts on a flannel and he goes fly fishing. He's like, I just like fly fishing. I'm just a regular dude. And someone's like, hey, Tucker, I like you on TV. I saw you on Fox. It's terrible they kicked you off. He's like, yeah. What kind of hooks do you like? It was so phony. It reminds me of when John Kerry goes into a Walmart and he's like, just here, get my hunting license. And they look at him like, are you crazy? You're in a Walmart, like dressed up like you're going like Elmer Fudd. He's got kind of Elmer Fudd costume. Here to get my hunting license. I love it when these elitists pretend to be populists. What's pathetic and sad is how effective it is. They just put on a different uniform or they put on they code switch, like, was it Hillary Clinton? I ain't no ways tired. It's like, okay. Chameleons. These chameleons are laughable, but they're also effective. Now, something else came out. Joe Rogan. So we got Jesse Ventura, now Joe Rogan. So Joe Rogan comes out, he's like, wow, bro, look at this video. Takes a bong rip. He always sounds like he just took a bong rip. He's like, how come the bullet didn't exit? So that video that we saw from back in October, where there's no blood behind Charlie Kirk, finally Joe Rogan gets to it. And everyone's going to say, oh, that's the truth getting out. No, it's not the truth getting out. That is a planted piece of narrative that implicates a second shooter. It exonerates Tyler. And the reason why it exonerates Tyler is that the type of weapon that Tyler used would have gone straight through Charlie's neck. Of course, their explanation was that he had a Superman Man of Steel neck, and like Charlie was a hero. His last deed in life was to stop the bullet because it could hurt other people. Right, because the bullet had no intention to stop there. Honestly, it would have been another 9/11. There would have been 3,000 dead. But thankfully, he clenched his neck. Like, that makes zero sense. Maybe his neck was made from the same stuff as Donald Trump's ear. But regardless, that's a planted storyline to create the second shooter narrative. Second shooter narratives are all fake, all controlled op. So Jesse Ventura saying that Trump bladed himself, you see, it's true, but if it's not accompanied by the wider perspective, it's lost. If I had 15 seconds with Piers Morgan, I would say, well, Trump bladed himself, but the whole thing was conducted with the entire production capabilities and special effects of the media there and the Secret Service. And the shooter was an actor and the fireman was fake killed. Like, you have to bring in the whole picture. But the entirety of this thing is outside the scope of mainstream and alternative media perspectives. They don't have it in their view that there's a systemic element here, that fakery is a reoccurring thing. These aren't anomalies. It's like this is a PR stunt to win votes. No, this is actually part of a prefabricated historic event that was already planned before Trump was even in office. That's something that's going to be difficult for people to get their mind if they're still programmed. And I said, if you're programmed, it means you're still going with this fake history. That's, again, not retconned, not changed in the past, but it's being proactively created. But we don't really need to worry about those people who are still programmed. We're only reaching out for the deprogrammed. There are enough of us. And then those who are like 80% of the way will jump ship when they see how many of us there are. Some people are, a little bound by consensus attitudes, and you can't fault them for it. Because we've kind of gone out of bounds, but we went out of bounds a long time ago. Anyway, I'm going to get back to work here. I just figured it's been a few days. I've been busy on a lot of projects. I have a lot of art on eBay. But we will be back on a regular schedule soon. They're going to limit my overtime from now on. In fact, they said I have to come in late for the next few days to basically prevent myself from getting so much overtime. We're just shorthanded. All right, I will see you all tomorrow or in Discord.